I write fiction, so I could be lying.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember when feminism was really getting cooking in the 80s. And I think it's something when people start to wake up and realize that some oppression has been going on, the tendency is to really react. And so there was a lot of rabid feminism as was needed.
And now it's no longer needed.
Yeah, well, it's still needed, I'm sure, but things have tempered in some ways, I think, as time has gone on, but a lot of growth had to happen on genders, all fronts, right?
Well, think of those suffragettes that started it. They were some pretty tough women.
Totally.
That was a long time ago.
Fierce, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, Kathy, did David drink from the fountain of youth, or is that?
No, that's Nico. He's here. We spent the morning kayaking.
Ah, nice.
Oh,
nice.
Yeah, it was perfect actually because it was still overcast this morning.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know about there, but here it's going to get 30s for the next foreseeable future.
I know.
You were supposed to say yes. That is the new David.
David, you're not going to join us.
No, I will when it's my time. But meanwhile, we have a guest.
No, it's all right. Oh, it's okay. Oh my gosh, we got only. Where's Char? Oh, there she is. Hello.
Hey.
Not the guitar, it's something else.
No.
I thought it was the guitar.
Look, I don't think most guitars sound.
Oh.
Muted.
Well,
No, maybe on
it's time
purpose.
to mute anyway because we're going to start.
I wanted to welcome our youngest guest. Hello. I'm having some kind of a reverb sound here, so I'm not going to talk on the microphone too much, but are we going to put him on the reader list?
No.
No.
Next time.
David reads. Hello.
Wow.
Yes. No.
Oh.
No. The Legend of Mermaid. Emcee Derek Hanebury is a Portaberry writer of poetry, fiction, and creative nonfiction who taught writing here at Northside College for many years. His new book, Something Else Altogether, is out.
Thank you, Karl, and good evening, everyone. Welcome back to another monthly event, the Electric Mermaid, coming to you live from downtown Port Alberni on the unceded territory of the Hepetcheseth and Shushat First Nations, whose ancestors and current members were grateful to them for sharing their land with us. And we're happy to be here today and looking forward to our open micers, and also our featured reader, Barbara Black, is joining us with her new work of short fiction. And we're going to get to hear some really amazing work, I'm sure, tonight. So very excited to be here. So I'm going to just confess to one little boo-boo last week, or last month, I should say, about me and the timing. So we had a conference and decided the best thing to do is let Karl do the timing. and as I'm unable to multitask at this point, so it's good. So what Karl is going to do is when we hit the 5-minute mark on the open mic readers, Karl will tap a little bell like that. Could everybody hear that out in Zoom land?
Nope.
No. Okay, you're going to have to tap it right by your microphone. Oh, okay. And Char will split the screen so that my face appears beside yours if you're reading, and you'll know that you've hit the 5-minute mark. And that doesn't mean that you have to just stop on the dime, but you can, if you're really close to the end, wind it up. If you've got quite a bit left, maybe it's a time, find a place to pause and say, and I'll finish it next month or whatever. It's all good. And if you do carry on beyond another half a minute, Karl is going to ding that bell again. Yeah. But anyway, not to worry. It's not a big deal. If we go a little bit over, it's all good. We've got lots of time, and everybody wants to hear what you've written anyway. So, all right. So let's get started here, and we're going to begin by heading over to London, Ontario, where Jennifer is waiting in the wings to share some more of her good poetry with us. And I want to say I was in your beautiful province there just a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
And it's hot and humid as ever. I got there, actually, I went to a family reunion. We came back from the family reunion to Toronto just in time for the flooding. It was a wonderful walk. So we spent the next day out on Toronto Island bicycling around through the puddles. It was a lot of fun. It's all good.
They were underwater there in Toronto. Oh my heavens.
Yeah, it was pretty wild.
Terrible.
Pretty wild. Yeah. Anyway, Jennifer, what are you going to share with us tonight?
One from the Here Through the Silence book. This is a summer poem, which is one of the reasons I picked it. It's called Once Upon a Weekday Morning, for Edgar Allan Poe. It is not a good start to the day, but then I am not now, nor have ever been, a morning person. Fears, anxieties, dimly remembered, exhausting dreams of trying futilely to get who knows where suffocate my ante-meridian cheer, leaving it gasping and helpless like a fish flopping on a pitching deck. While a pry bar forged of need and habit, tempered with a dash of hope, levers me upright. The usual ailments and aches report for duty, along with a couple of new recruits this time. Preliminary ablutions, and into the dining room, summer vista of the yard on full and blinding display, when comes a tapping, a rapping at the window feeder, not of the fabled raven, but a dazzling fusion of black, white, and vermilion, a male rose-breasted grosbeak, instantly joined by a streaked and tawny lady, insistently gesturing farther out to the youthful red-bellied woodpecker, scarlet head patch about to burst forth, and the black-white medley of an arriving downy on the squirrel buster, and a few feet over, saffron mother Oriole doting on her gawky youngster at the jelly station. A crimson flash reveals a cardinal lounging on the arbor. A rusty streak signals an incoming robin to frolic in the bird path. Weakness receding, weariness fading. Onward, I ask, gazing at the avian throng. Quoth my winged visitors, one and all, evermore. Tiny little tribute to Poe's Wonderful the Raven.
Mhm.
Thank you. This next one is called Undamaged Goods with, if you can picture it, the un in brackets. And this was written for a good friend of mine. Look in the mirror and you will see strength, beauty, vigor. Certainly I do, and the world with me. But it seems there's more lurking somewhere that surfaces in vulnerable moments. Memories of an emergent young woman and memories of another who, in his weakness and shame and depravity, tried to rob you of innocence and joy, tried to tag you with a notice mark, damaged goods, a label that never remotely fit, not at any point. Oh, there was a time you felt it indelible, but we both know it was never there, though the thought once burned you like a brand. And now, bask in the wisdom that is innocence transmuted, revel in joy, and keep shining that sacred light that is yours alone. Thank you very much.
Beautiful. As always, thank you. Thank you, Jen. Transcendent and shining your beautiful light as always. Thanks for sharing those. All right. We've got Joelunchbucket now, aka Bob Franco, at home on Zoom tonight. Hopefully, where are you there, Bob? I'm not seeing you yet. Trying to find him. There he is. There you are, Bob. Hello.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, we're good. We're unmuted.
Okay,
We're live.
Organized here. We're having a dinner party.
Okay.
Pizza party.
Hate to interrupt the dinner party, but we're glad you joined us, Bob, and we're trusting that that was the thing that kept you home and that it's not a mobility issue. So, well,
Okay,
the mic is all yours, sir.
thank you. God, I look old in the picture here. Do I look 84 years old?
Oh, you're 84 years young. Okay.
Sailors left animals on islands. Could universe have been seeded by gods unknown? Were we an interstellar snack to munch on with vegan food they had grown? Visitors quizzed why Hawaii accepted Christianity when they had deities of their own. Tour guides said that their king needed guns to subjugate tribes to gain Hawaii throne. Historically, the strong took best land and the weak were forced onto ice and desert sand. Missionaries offered salvation and common language of communication. But did Europe's viruses almost result in Aboriginal decimation? Will ET2 bring their viruses and missionary mind control tools of colonization? Can their laws, technology, and science bring peace and advance civilization? Will they be our brother's keeper and house our homeless generation? Can nations repeat history's success and relinquish dreams of domination? Will capitalism's wars cease and will settle by negotiation and arbitration? Could world government control weather and be Earth's disaster insurance policy to ensure that our dinosaur military has ET asteroid strike capability? Did World War II create breathing space, fulfilling Hitler's obsession? Would a prolonged world peace push Earth into deep recession? Will U.S. church-state media monopoly ever make this confession? Will war industry protest and our economy go from boom to bust? Russian Yuk and Israeli Hamas skirmishes, a 21st century must. Would a united Earth be invited to join Milky Way peace fraternity? Or is ET on a conquest mission to recruit the most practiced killers in our galaxy? Can UFOs be the enemy, or just trade or cruise ships, an Earth zoo they came to see?
Thank you, Bob. Some provocative questions as always, and yes, maybe we are just a cruise ship stop for the ETs. Have you heard of Dr. Stephen Greer,
I don't think so.
the Disclosure Project?
No,
I think you'd be interested in looking that up online.
Okay.
See what he's compiled. Yeah, it's very interesting stuff. Be right up your alley.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, good to see you. We'll let you get back to your dinner party. Enjoy. Don't
We're
eat.
finished eating, waiting for dessert. You're the dessert.
The best part. All right. Enjoy, and hopefully you'll be back here live with us next month.
Yes, thank you.
Awesome. Take care.
So how do we mute this?
Oh, you don't have to. It's going.
You just click on the little microphone down there in the corner, down in the left-hand corner. It's all right. Char's already done it for you. You're muted. You can party all you want now. Go ahead. All right. Okay, so it's time for our featured reader, and we're so, as I said before, excited to hear what you've got to share with us, Barbara. And welcome to the Electric Mermaid, this hybrid literary event from the literary capital of British Columbia, Port Alberni. But we're really fortunate, I think, to have you here and to share your work with us. We've got a lot of serious writers out there in the audience who, and most of us, I think, have tried our hand at flash fiction, which is one of your strong suits, and which I understand you're going to read from your latest book of flash fiction. So we got lots we want to ask you about afterwards, but we're going to save it till then. And for those of you who don't know, Barbara has won many contests with her flash fiction and been shortlisted for many others, won other awards, and gone on to publish complete works of flash fiction as well. And she also does libretti. So I want to hear about that too, how that goes from doing, flash fiction into writing opera. And so we got lots to talk about, but first, we just thank you for coming to be with us, and we look so forward to hearing what you have to share. So the floor is yours for the next 20 minutes, and then we'll do about 10 minutes of Q&A afterwards and see what everybody wants to pester you about.
Pester away.
Okay.
Well, thanks, Derek. It's great to be here at Electric Mermaid. And as Derek mentioned, I'm going to be reading from my second book, which is out right now. There it is, Little Fortified Stories, with a cover that I collaged because my publisher asked me, would I like to do that? And I said, sure. And I'm going to start out, there's several sections in my collection, sort of thematic-ish sections. And I'm going to start out by telling you how the title came about, Little Fortified Stories. What's the story about that? So, first of all, I'll tell you that it is a collection of 90 micros and flash fiction, mostly flash fiction, small ones and not as small ones. And I think I'm reading 6 tonight, and just to give you a sense of the variety in the collection. And well, several years ago, I was in Lisbon, and I had a scholarship from the Disquiet International Literary Program. If you're a writer, you should really look into that. It's a great thing. And I was in the short fiction class, and that was a totally new genre for me. I hadn't even heard of flash fiction at that point. And on an afternoon break, I thought, I want to go to the port center and sample some port. I'm in Lisbon, I should be doing that. So I went into the great port center and ordered a flight of 3 red ports. And what was interesting was as I sipped on one of these were lovely aged red ports, I had a story, like a voice come into my head, and it had, the line was the three faces of fear. And I thought, oh my goodness, there's a story coming out while I'm sampling these. So I immediately wrote that down and started to write and ended up with what you might call a flash type story. And I noticed that it had qualities of that particular port as well, which was a very refined and old port. So I'm going to read that to you now. It's called Lake Creatures. The three faces of fear. These were the names their father had given them, not Sophia, Rosa, Vitalia. The sisters' greatest secret was to have their ears pressed up against the wall of their father's library. They didn't swoon over boys, forbidden, or fancy clothes, forbidden. Despite their young age, they were elegant, intense. They loved, above all things, books. They craved the touch and smell of inked paper and the words that rose from it, like a strange perfume. But despite their desire to consume all the world's books, they were barred from the library. Only men and cigars were permitted, and complex considerations on the goodness of God, the benefits of slavery, and which Portuguese pastry was better, fat from heaven or a nun's belly. There was the question of the lake and the part it had played in the girl's disappearance. It was designed to be viewed from the library window and to reflect the sun at an exactly calculated time of the day. At this time, as the father stood looking out the library window, the footman would go down to the dock with the wheelbarrow and dump censored books into the water. Some said the girls had turned into lake creatures and fed on the pages at the bottom. So there you have it. When I was in Lisbon, I wrote more port stories because I enjoyed it so much. And when I came home, I also added more spirits, alcoholic spirits, that I was sipping only in small amounts, I must point out. And the whole section there I added gin and rum and tequila and some others, and it became a section called distillations. So I am going to go now to a story from the bourbon section, specifically, I believe it was Maker's Mark. And this story was inspired by a line from Lydia Davis. You might be familiar with her. She writes short fiction, kind of her own style. She's very, very talented. And this is the line that made me write this story. Mrs. D consults a doctor about her trouble conceiving. So here is the map of my wanderings. There was a difficulty with conceiving. I lacked faith, said the doctor. I hadn't visualized sufficiently the heroic spermatozoa's journey to conquer the female anatomy. I hadn't surrendered my body to an act of nature. All right, I said. I went home and ate an entire pumpkin, coachman and all. I swallowed a wolf just to see what it felt like. I danced in a red smock, ate clouds for breakfast, and drank from the rain barrel. I made 3 wishes on a massive genie fish I found at the beach. When my wishes weren't granted, I fried it and ate it for dinner. Meanwhile, my husband sequestered himself in our unheated garage, head inserted into the innards of his 1993 Ford Probe, his baby. In fall, I left to swim upstream with the spawning salmon. In winter, I moved into a mama badger's den where we gorged ourselves on eggs of darkling beetle. Mama was good at I Spy on those long, dark days. And until then, I never knew there were so many shades of brown. In spring, I hunted musky weasels and dreamed of exponential rabbits. Smells were the map of my wanderings. I befriended a barred owl. We almost fell out of the tree laughing, yelling, "Who cooks for you?" as the old stars above sputtered like a faulty fountain. I had faith now in nature's rhythms. I was vernal, diurnal, nocturnal, predatorial. My hair grew into wild grass. My eyes glowed in the dark. The weather forewarned me through the pores of my skin. My womb was a hive, alive with internal processes. When the doctor read the ultrasound, he looked alarmed. "Well, I'll be darned. You've got a whole litter in there." I looked back at him with my authentic feral smile, careful to hide my incisors. So there you go. Now we're going to go back to another spirit, and that is Jinn. And this story is from obviously the distillation section. This story does have some of the qualities of the drink I was judiciously sipping on, and that is Bombay Sapphire Gin. And you might see there is some qualities of coolness, whiteness, starkness, and clarity in this story. But I also want to point out that this story was inspired as well by a piece of artwork. And I love writing to art, and there's a word for it. It's called ekphrastic writing, something that I just adore doing. And the artwork that inspired me is a gigantic metal sculpture of a spider made by Louise Bourgeois. And Louise Bourgeois is a real fan of spiders. She loves them. She thinks of her mother as a spider for some reason. And she thinks that spiders are tender mothers. And here is a story that was inspired by that. The Bones of Amundsen. 6 degrees above the horizon, that time of dusk astronomers call the golden hour. An albino spider as tall as a house strides across icy tundra, a man in her grip. You don't see her, you see the flickering shadows of her legs elongated by the sun's low angle. She used to be called Mama. People don't believe she exists. They took her children, her beautiful spiderlings, to study rare albino anomalies. Up here, no one will look for her. Even if they did, no one would see her against the stark white of the Arctic snow. The man wriggles in her grip like a wingless insect. One of her 8 eyes might have seen you frozen there on the knoll. But stationary objects don't interest her. She craves the moving, the living. For a time, anyway. Back in her nest in the abandoned research station, she builds sculptures and wind chimes from the bones of Amundsen and others who come and scratch in their diaries, trying to understand things that don't need to be understood. When the wind blows through the storm-blasted windows, the chimes play a brittle symphony of human death that makes the hairs on her 8 legs stand on end. The sound reminds her of a delicate walk on the strands of her web, the crystalline feeling a mother knows that at any moment things could go wrong, leaving you to squint into a blinding light. And thank you. I do like insects. Well, actually, spiders aren't insects, but I do like spiders too. I'm going to go to the ancestral fabrications section now. And that is the section where I write about my ancestry. And it is called fabrications because some of the stories have a few facts from my history. Some have not that many, and some are completely fabricated, hence that overarching title. Now, this one, when you hear it, you might think it's made up, but actually, it's based on truth. My paternal grandmother, Grandma Laroque, told me about her mother who threw her husband out of the house because he was drinking, made him live in a shack in the backyard, and made him pay half the milk bill. So, this is the story of that episode. Granny Laroque, 1892, Russell, Ontario. Us girls ran the other way when we saw Granny Laroque stomping out the back screen door, whacking the house like a punishment, her eyes two pie slits, apron strings flailing at her hips like the arms of drowners. And did she yell? No. Did she swear? Well, yes. She said, God damn him, God almighty son of a... And the ground shrunk away from her feet. Chickens squawked crazy, and Gramps' favorite chicken, Miss Pinkham, blasted into the coop, hunkered in the corner, quiet as goose down. Granny Laroque, she was small and had hands that could count your ribs, even with your sweater on, and fingers like talons, not long, but wicked skilled. She plucked Miss Pinkham right out, wrung her neck like a dishcloth, chopped the head clean off, nailed it with the milk bill to the door of Grandpa Frank's shack, ripped off her apron, flung it on his front step, went back inside with her hair all in curlers, made her look like some old town Medusa. Grandpa Frank snuck out the back of the shack, bottles sloshing inside his jacket, and us Laroque girls jumped into bed, tucked ourselves in tight as two matches in a matchbox, red heads sticking out like lit up tinder. True story. Now I'm going to take you to a section called Visual Provocations. And this is where it's all ekphrastic writing, which is, as I told you, mentioned earlier, writing from a piece of art or a photograph or a sculpture. And this is just, I love this as a prompt. It's just fascinating. I do love looking at art. And I also like writing to music, as long as it is in a language that I don't know or it has no words. So I've done that a lot too. This artwork is by A.J. Casson, whose name you might know. He was a member of the group of 7 Canadian artists. And the artwork is Little Island. And it is indeed a little island in this painting in the midst of a very large lake area, probably in Ontario, where a dark heart burns. I move forward, facing backward. Water drips from the oar tip. There are those of us for whom islands are exile. For others, they're an oasis from humanity, where one can occupy oneself in seclusion. Sometimes you have to go dead to be alive again, as she put it, sequestering on this little island in an old shack built by an artist. In the distance, a woodpecker rams a tree with its beak. Fish ribbon past under the lake's surface. They have names like walleye and smallmouth, which implies something about why she wants to be here, to look slant, to speak little. She's dressed in white sackcloth, shapeless. We step around the poison oak. An outdoor table is set for 3. Company coming, love? I say. She slits her eyes at me. This is Effie. A sedge-woven thing, sitting there on a cedar stump chair. Moss hair, its eyes ghostly snowberries. Twig hands splayed as if stuck in supplication. Our daughter, she says, crazy hair exploding from her head. I never knew my wife could carve or weave. No words form in my mouth. Teacups filled, we eat white cake in silence. Are you coming home at some point? I ask. You mean going home? Well, either. We're burning Effie first tonight. Her soul seems to catch fire, too, like old man's beard near a lit match. And when at the ashes stage she cries, I cry too. From the northern reaches of the lake, a loon pulls down the moon with its three-pitch lament. I can no longer look to her to see myself, and yet I love her more now than before. Thank you. And my last very short story is from the Fado section, which ends the collection. It's going back to Portugal, as we started with Portugal and the port, and now we're into Fado songs. Fado is if you don't know, it's a Portuguese form of music. It's similar to Spanish flamenco, but not quite. It's about nostalgia and grief and passion and love. And it's sung by a very emotional male or female singer, someone who can really, really project emotions, and accompanied by a 12-string guitar, Portuguese guitar, which is a very intricate instrument. It's lovely. And I called this collection Fado Songs because each one of these very, very short little vignettes is inspired by a particular Fado lyric. And there's great poets in Portugal that write these lyrics many times. And we couldn't include the quotes in the book, unfortunately, due to copyright, but it was inspired by lyrics of Fado songs. And this is the very last one, Fado 10. Love is like a long, slow cigarette we feed on till the ashes drop. Your lips on mine, my lips on yours. We inhale each other as if the other were a vice. I would kiss even your embers if that's all that was left. If it meant that in the end, you would never be extinguished. And that's my completion. I hope you enjoyed it.
Beautiful. Wow. Wow. Thank you so much. That was fabulous. So much good stuff in there. Made me think of that Margaret Atwood poem, and I'd rewrite it a little bit to say it's dangerous to read fairy tales.
Oh,
appropriate. Beautiful.
yeah.
Beautiful fairy tale imagery through so much of your work, and that surreal feel to it.
Yeah.
Yes, magic. And that last one, wow, what a beautiful. That was as good as any prose poem I've ever read. Super, thank you. So we'll open it up here a little bit for some questions, and people out in Zoom land, you're just going to have to unmute and make yourself known because I might not see your hand sticking up. And anybody here in live at Char's, just let us know and we'll get you to come up to the mic here and ask your question so everybody can hear it. But so we heard a little bit about how you got started writing the flash fiction, and that's fascinating. So the connection with opera. Now, maybe listen a little bit on that. Do you write it and sing it, or do you just write it?
Well, actually, I used to be in the Pacific Opera chorus.
Beautiful.
Opera chorus, and I am a trained classical singer.
Beautiful.
And I've done jazz too. Not doing those right now. I really miss it. But what I'm doing instead is collaborating with composers.
Beautiful.
And one of those is a composer from Vancouver. And she was interested in doing a comic chamber opera. We met in an art song lab in Vancouver where writers and composers get together and create a new work. And we didn't actually get to work together, but we contacted each other and decided to use one of the stories from my book, actually.
Beautiful.
And I don't know if I can find it right now in those. It's a story about a suffragette, actually. And somehow I managed to turn it into a comic opera.
Wow.
And there's nothing, I have to tell you, if you're going to write a libretto, there's nothing out there that tells you how to write a libretto.
It's
I just
completely
had
by
to,
braille.
yeah, I just had to sort of find my way. And I had help from Katerina because she had to set it to music. So there were things that I might have done that she said, right here, I need something that's going to go to a high point or, make the words simpler. It was a great learning curve.
Wow.
And we did debut it in Vancouver a
Fabulous.
couple years ago. And it was semi-staged. We didn't have enough budget to do like a full on, but
Yeah.
the audience really enjoyed it. So I love right now, because I'm not doing music, I really like to work with composers and, sort of feel like I'm contributing to the music because it doesn't exist because my words that's what creates the piece.
Mhm.
So I worked with a composer in Amsterdam, Paolo, God, I can't remember. I'm having like Paolo Gorini. And it was a very mysterious thing called Night Escape about sort of going into the night and having a different experience of yourself. And we collaborated on that. It was fantastic. And
Wonderful.
he's made a film of it. And yeah.
Wow.
So that's my other kind of writing life.
Beautiful. Well, in my next life, I hope that I get the opportunity to do something like that because I do feel like opera allows emotion to go to whole new levels that you
That's true.
just hard to touch with prose or poetry. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
fabulous. Wow. So, looking, are there any questions floating around? We have one over here. Oh, no.
No?
No, we have one, David, out there in Zoom land. Go ahead, David.
All right. Go ahead.
Yeah, I wonder if you write flash fiction, do you just start and continue for like 500 words and stop? Or do you ever have a story which you exists and which you cut down to 500 words?
Right.
I'm wondering if or is flash fiction a totally new creation which begins and stops at 500 words?
Well, first of all, this is what most people say Flash is 300 words to 1,500 words. So it can be as few as 300, but not less, because then it becomes a different kind of microfiction it would be. And up to 1,500, and then after 1,500, it's either sudden fiction or it starts to move into short stories land. I'm such a minimalist. I never have the problem of writing too much and having to cut it down. That's why I love Flash, because it's kind of a miniature genre of compression. Mostly it's up to the story to sort of let me know, or the character, how long it's going to be. And I really, as a prompt to even start one, it's as I said, it could be art, could be music, well, it could be spirits. It's a lot of experimentation in this genre, and it's really fun for that reason. And you don't have to use a prompt, but it's quite common. And in workshops, they'll often give you like 3 very strange, unrelated words and say, all you people in the workshop go and write a story. You have to include these 3. They don't have to feature in the story, but you have to include those 3 words. And everybody writes a different story, which is great. So I just rely on I'm very organic and intuitive. I'm not a planner person. That's why I think I could never write a novel. So I really follow the character's trajectory and try to see where that's taking me. Sometimes the writing has a story arc, and some people say every time you write a story, it has to have a story arc. But the experimental people say no, there's different ways of doing it. Or you can have a very subtle arc, a small one at the end. So I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's wonderful. I'm the other way, but where I always end up writing way too much and having to whack back to try and reach that word limit. So I'm
Yeah.
jealous, but yeah, fabulous.
Well, I think that's interesting to hear you say that about story arc, because for some people, that's become a kind of religion. And
Exactly.
I
Yes.
realize that I've come from a background of a student of literature, and which, that idea is completely foreign, and the idea that if it doesn't meet this particular kind of art, it can't be a story. I mean, there would be so much of German literature would have to be burned.
Oh.
Yeah, that's
So it's
funny.
good to hear you say that. I mean, I
Yeah.
think obviously what you read is so impressive because there was no formula there that fit it as far as I could tell.
Well, and what I've seen too is I've seen people who really do follow those instructions in Flash, and they write a story with a story arc, and it's not
Yeah.
that interesting. It's like it doesn't have any inner life. So that's what I'm aiming for, because I am quite an introvert, an inner life. And what I work for the reader is resonance. So when they get to the end, there's maybe a little change and a flip, and there's some resonance. The story resonates after you've read it.
Mm.
Is what I'm more looking for, I think. So that's good to hear from you, Kathleen. Thanks.
All right. That's great. Thank you, Kathy, for those questions, and David. And we've got Victoria here live at Char's has got a question for you, Barbara.
Well, I think my question's almost been answered there, but because I was wondering what makes the difference between short stories and flash.
Oh, no, that's a good question. Well, it is length. Generally, short stories are, they usually are 2,000 to 2,500 and up. I mean, they can be as long as 10,000 words.
Okay.
My first book was short stories, but they were really short for short stories. So that is the sort of, you have more time and space in short stories to give some backstory, which you can do in Flash too, just with like 3 words or something. But you do have more time in a short story to develop your character. So Flash was originally, apparently, when it first started, was called sudden fiction. And the reason it was called that is you had to jump right in. You couldn't do the whole back, Johnny used to live in Ontario, la la la. It was, and now he fell off a horse. You start with, he fell off the horse. You just start right in the action when something is unraveling, happening.
I like the idea of flash fiction. I think that sounds really good. There's a novel, historical fiction that I wanted to write, but actually sounds like I might do it in flash fiction. It sounds a lot easier.
Well, it's not easy in terms of being compressed, but of what you can do, and what I might be my next project, because I'm so afraid of novels, is you can write a novella in Flash. And what it is each chapter is like a flash, and you can do it with nonfiction too. And so that's quite a popular genre among people who like flash fiction. Other people probably don't even know about that. So you could try that. Yeah.
Thank you very much. I really enjoyed your presentation tonight. It was wonderful.
Thank you.
Your readings. Thank you.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks for that good question, Victoria. Any other questions out there in Zoom land or anywhere? No, we're looking good. Okay, I guess we're gonna call it there, and I just want to thank you so much, Barbara, for sharing not only your writing, but your thoughts about flash fiction and opera and everything else that you shared with us. It was great, really great having you. And I think there is an arc in the subtext of most of your stories, but as you said, it's that resonance at the end that we feel it's just like, oh yeah, okay. And that is a challenge with something that short. There's no doubt about it. But obviously your work does it. So thank you again, and feel free to stick around and listen to some more of our open micers if you like.
I will be.
Awesome. Yeah. Good to have you here. Okay.
Thanks, everybody.
Okay. All right. We're going to come in the house now, and Victoria Roscoe-Roumanis is going to do some reports. And back up to the mic, Victoria. Oh, Char needs a moment to get her scrolled in there, dialed in. The thing we can see that people out in Zoomland can't see is how many miles Char puts on her sneakers every night in here when she does this job. No cast. Yeah, she was doing this with a broken foot the last few months, so things are getting a little easier for her, thank goodness. All right. Almost there. All right. Looking good. We're good to go. Okay. And Victoria, what are you going to share with us this evening?
Something short.
All right. We're on a short theme tonight.
I'm trying to get my creativity back for writing, and I love walking into the forest up to the waterfalls, and I'm following a path or a trail, and I'm sort of saying to myself, "Oh, please let there be a story in this." Well, this is what came out. I forced it. I had to write something. Oh, you can't hear me? Oh, okay. There. Okay. Is that better? Yes. Test. Is that okay?
There we go. That's good. Yeah. Nice and close to the mic. Yeah.
So it is called Trails and Tales. A trail is like a tale, creating a feeling of adventure, an urge to go forward, to follow, to listen, curious to see what is around the next corner or the next paragraph. That wasn't in my piece. Okay, I'll carry on. These two words are almost identical, except for a single letter, R. They are similar, yet not a simile. I love a trail through the forest, beside streams and water of any nature. Trails down to the ocean waves following the naked footprints of an adventurer. Tales have been created and captivated an audience since the beginning of time, including to today at the Electric Mermaid. Would the scholar who created the words trails and tales have given thought to their similarity? When you next follow a trail, observe all that you see around to enable you to tell the tale.
Beautiful. Thank you, Victoria. Awesome. Yeah, that's what Wordsworth used to do, right? He just go hiking and let the poetry flow through him while he was out there. And yeah, stories are out there as well. Yeah, I had this same thing with hiking trails that are really long, where I say I'm just going to go for a short hike, but I always want to know what's around the next corner. And a good story keeps you doing that as well, right? Wanting to see what's around the next corner. Thanks for sharing that. Beautiful. Alrighty, we're going to go back out to Zoomland now, and David Kippling is going to share some of his prose with us, I'm guessing.
Okay, I'm at more of a distance from the microphone. Can you hear me?
So far, so good.
Okay.
Everybody else okay? Can you hear David okay? Yeah, we have thumbs up in the house.
Okay, this is one of several. You've heard from me about Rosie on the Canal. Like a while ago, we met a guy called Jacko at the end of his life when he was 80. And this is him when he was about 14. And we'll see him and his mother. In fact, last time I read, they were on the way back. Here we go. Doesn't matter. Steering her barge into the heart of industrial Birmingham had cancelled Rosie's earlier enjoyment of the open countryside. Rank fumes from the coke ovens of the gasworks had given a brown tinge to the skyline as the barge slipped past Solihull's grim landscape. At one footbridge, a gaggle of boys had been jumping and swimming in the canal. They hooted and called her Mrs. Captain. They were just enjoying the splash of water, and Rosie pondered the unfairness that kept girls sedentary and fully clothed at canals and lakes. Closer to Birmingham, a quartet of men fishing had stared at her barge. Their boots hung over the concrete wharf and fishing rods tilted at different angles. One called out, "Where's your husband, sweetheart?" One of his companions elbowed him and said, "Shut up, that's one of the Webster's boats." He squinted. "Excuse me, miss, are you a Webster from the Aylesbury boatyard?" Rosie stood up straighter and placed her hands on Jacko's thin shoulder and yelled back, "Yes, Sean Webster's my dad. I'm Mrs. Dawson," and paused in confusion. Two of the men stood up and brushed themselves down and strolled easily along beside the barge as it chugged by. "Look after my rod, Kelly," said one over his shoulder. Then louder, "Was your husband Ernie Dawson? We heard about him being, in Italy. Sorry about that, all of us. We used to deliver timber to your boatyard, me and Pat here. We used to see your Ernie all the time when he was moored there. A good bloke. Mick Bray, that's me." Jacko had looked up at Rosie with pride, and Rosie smiled and tweaked his ear. "Gas Street Basin," said the black letters on the cast iron signpost. Rosie scanned the line of barges, looking for a mooring spot. Spotting a faded pink headscarf and a flowered frock worn over army trousers, she slowed the barge and brought it alongside a barge named the Mayfly in bright yellow lettering. "Joan, wakey, wakey," she called. The woman turned from her scrubbing and grinned a welcome. "Can I double berth with you for a minute?" asked Rosie. "The steps are right here and I have to sign in." "Yes," the woman replied. "Throw me a line and I'll tie you in." Jacko helped secure the ropes, and Rosie stepped cautiously across Joan's barge and onto the lowest stone step. "Back in a minute, Joan. I have to find the tallyman." The old stone steps from the water up to the wharf were worn and treacherous with damp, narrow and steep, and the dark, oily water waited. Rosie struggled up and spotted the tallyman's improvised desk, bolted to a stanchion, with its own telephone and stamps and logbooks under a crude canvas roof. Rosie passed her register book to the official, who copied the latest entry into his own, added the date, and consulted his fat pocket watch to confirm the time. 50 tons of steel plate and pipes, said Rosie. The man grunted. Hard times when Websters have to send a woman to bring a barge up. He spread his palms. Don't get me wrong, the women have been doing well on this run. At least you girls arrive on time, sober, and don't get into fights or steal. Rosie sighed. We're doing it because our men can't get military exemptions. But have you noticed that one barge company has been keeping most of their men? The man looked both ways and murmured, Timpsons, you mean? What's the story about Timpsons? I'll tell you when I get my cargo off, grinned Rosie, tapping the side of her nose. Can you get me a crane in good time? The man grabbed the arm of a bustling assistant who carried a flag and a whistle. Here, hold the end berth for me, will you? It's for Webster's #1. Put up your priority flag before anyone else tries to get in, and make sure you guide Rosie in. A coin changed hands, and the assistant trotted to the far end of the wharf where a grey crane hissed steam into the air. Rosie thanked the tallyman. She stepped back down the unforgiving stone stair, steadying her hands against the greasy stonework. Thanks, Joan. You can come have a brew up with us tomorrow morning before we leave. I'll give you a shout. Jacko threw a tow rope up to the horseman waiting on the wharf and untied their barge from the Mayfly. Rosie and Jacko lifted their barge poles from the rack and fended off Joan's barge, and the horse leaned forward to take the strain. As their barge approached the empty berth, the horseman's boy unhooked his end of the rope, unwrapped it twice round a stout ballard. The drooping rope tightened under the pull of 50 tons and snubbed Rosie's barge to a halt below the crane. Jacko swarmed up an iron ladder, calling, Can I feed your horse, please, mister? The horseman pushed his cap back and scratched an unshaven cheek. All right, nose bag's over there on the crate. But first, give her your hand to sniff. Slowly, okay? The nose bag was a jute sack with a leather bottom, and Jacko peeped in to see oats and chopped hay. Jacko offered it shyly to the horse, which tossed its nose and snorted. Here, said the man, hold the bottom up a bit so she doesn't have to press it on the ground to reach her food. As the old horse nuzzled its food, Jacko breathed horse smell and hay smell and sour old man smell and the canal's breath, all the smells in the world from all the trades and all the towns.
Awesome. Thank you, David. Is that so? I'm getting this feeling like we're heading towards a collection of these linked stories with Rosie in there. It just
Well, there is a collection, but it's a bit jumbled. I like them anyway.
yeah,
I like working on them.
they're wonderful and so evocative. So yeah, I think I can see it happening. It would make a great collection. And
Thank you.
yeah, follow that line. Sweet. Thank you. All right, we're coming back in-house live now, and Dan Biggs is going to be our spotlight reader for tonight. So he's going to do a 10-minute slot here. I'm guessing sharing from his new novel that he's working on, and we'll see.
Yeah, that's right. This is.
I got it right. Oh, good.
How's that? Can you hear me?
Sounds pretty good. We're just
Okay.
moving the camera up now to get you in the middle of the frame.
Okay.
Yeah, as long as you keep your mouth close to that mic, you're all good.
All right. So this is chapter 4. I'm probably not going to get through it, but see how far I get. So in this chapter, what I'm trying to do is establish the relationship between the protagonist's father, that's Maggie, her father's name is Gunter, and her husband Henry. So this is before Maggie was born. This is going back in time when they were both young men or teenagers. The sun glimmered on the just arrived 2-day-old newspaper. On page 2, Gunter read the article on the bishop's visit to Vancouver. The caption below the half-page black and white photo read, Bishop Lawson greets the faithful at the new Lutheran Cathedral in downtown.
A little closer to the mic there, Dan. Sorry.
In downtown. Yeah, like that. Okay. I should have been there. Thought fettered Gunther like a lost craving. He rubbed the back of his neck. I didn't know about it. How it must have been. I could have been in this picture. They could have seen me. The bishop would have seen me. Of all of us, I should have been there. But I am here. Time stops here. Gunther remembered a time when he should have spoke, in class when he should have spoke, but sat silent. Why? The same void of regret listed his esteem. He studied the faces of those who stood before the outdoor pulpit, admiring the bishop's broad, smiling. The great man smiling before his masses, one arm raised, the other holding open the holy book. That will be me one day. Just one more year of study, he whispered. Gunther, where are you? Stop your daydreaming and come in here, his mother called from the kitchen. Yes, he said. She held a large pot over the sink, watched water drip from the bottom. Oh, I must. Yeah. She held a large pot over the sink, watching water drip from the bottom. He said, is that new? He said, it was. I see. Maybe it was a mistake. I missed a page here. Okay. Sorry, when I printed it off, I must have cut something off. So she goes, I just bought that from this man and his smelly mule this morning. And look, it leaks. I see, maybe it's a mistake. He should know. It's his business to know the condition of the stuff he sells to hardworking people. He has swindled us. See, then I was alone and swindled us. Gunther took the pot, dumped it into the sink, and studied the bottom. I'm not a smith, but I don't think it's been put together properly. Father has gone to town with Thomas. You need to go after that man and get our money back. Gunther took a deep breath. Mother's look waited on him. You may be right, she said. He may not know his pot leaks. Jacob is working in the barn. Take him with you. Gunther and Jacob stood on the hard-packed dirt road, Jacob wearing overalls and a red bandana around his neck. Gunther wore a white short-sleeved shirt and black slacks. They watched the tinker lead a mule from a neighbor's farmhouse out onto the road, pots and pans clanging. Your dad wants to start milking tomorrow. He needs me to have those canisters cleaned before he gets back from town, Jacob said. You'll have lots of time to finish. Mother wants you with me. I might need your help. Don't worry. I'll help you when we get back. Thanks, Gunther. Anything I can do to help. I owe your family a lot for taking me in. As Gunther moved forward, Jacob reached out. Why don't we wait until he reaches the trees down the road? Gunther shrugged. Why? He won't feel safe there in the trees, and he may be more willing to give your mother's money back. We're not going to threaten him. I'm sure he's an honest man and stands behind his goods. We don't know, Jacob said. The tinker turned down the road, walking away from them. Gunther quickened his pace. Excuse me, sir. The tinker's bearded face and beady eyes came over his shoulder. He kept walking. Gunther followed. Excuse me, Gunther said, holding the pot up. The tinker stopped and regarded Gunther with a scowl. My mother bought this from you this morning, he said, catching his breath. And when she tried to boil water, it leaked. Let me see that, the tinker said, taking the pot. As he examined it, Gunther said, we can get some water from the ditch down there. The tinker shook his head. I make sure all my pots hold water. If it leaks, someone must have dropped it. No, he said. All sales are final. The tinker handed the pot back to Gunther. Gunther refused. The tinker regarded Jacob. The tinker shook his head. I make sure all of my pots hold water. If it leaks, oh, okay, sorry, another mistake. Tinker, no, sir, nothing like that happened, Gunther said. What are you saying, boy? Are you calling me a cheat? No, sir, I don't lie. I'm home for the summer from the seminary. Next year I'll be a priest. A priest. Look, son, I don't sell junk. We just want our money back. The tinker shook his head. No, a sale's a sale. Leave me be. I have work to do, he said. As he dropped the pot on the road, the pot fell on its side and rolled until the handle stopped. But, sir, Gunther insisted, look, boy, we'll tell our neighbors. We'll tell them you don't stand by your wares. You can't do business like this. You have a funny accent. Are you sure you're from around here? The tinker said. I said I've been away at school. And you threaten my business? What do you know of business? The tinker dropped the reins. You threaten my livelihood, take fruit from my children's mouth, and you call yourself a preacher? The two of you get on home. I'm sure you have shit to shovel. I'm here, and if I hear you've been bad-mouthing me, I'll make both of you pay. The tinker took the mule and moved off the road. Okay. You all right? Red-faced, brow-creased. He's a liar and a cheat. He just slapped me, Gunther said through clenched teeth. The tinker walked away, looking over his shoulder. We'll do what you said. Tell the neighbors about him. He won't be selling any of his stuff around here, Jacob said. I can't go back without Mother's money. We tried. He's not going to give it back. We could go through the woods, like you said, cut him off. And force him? How? It was your idea in the first place. I don't think he will come to force. He's a coward and a liar. He might have a gun or a knife, Jacob said. Jacob didn't get an answer. Gunther was fixed solely on the tinker. As the tinker disappeared behind a rise in the road, Gunther picked up a pot, jumped across the ditch, and ran across a clear field scattered with upturned trunks, their black roots sticking up like contorted digits. Jacob watched until Gunther stopped on the black earth, standing small amongst the lignum liths, and urged him, come on. They made their way through the woods and circled back. From the cover of brush and boles, they watched the tinker and his mule pottering along, their heads visible above the brush, in and out of shadows and the rayed sunlight from the broken canopy. They entered the road. The tinker looked up, saw them standing side by side. He stopped, pulled mule's reins. His face drooped. With a slack in his voice, he said, I told you to get on. Just give us our money back, Gunther said as he walked forward. I can't. What are you going to do? Come and take it? It's my money. We will if we have to, Jacob shouted. You said you was a preacher in training. Preachers aren't supposed to use force. Aren't you supposed to turn the other cheek? As he spoke, the tinker stepped back and rubbished in the sack across the mule's back. As Gunther and Jacob moved towards him, he pulled out a hammer. We don't want to fight. We just want our mother's money back, others said, as he held up the pot. The tinker swung the hammer, knocking the pot from Gunther's hand. The tinker raised the hammer. Gunther cowered. The tinker's face creased, ignited in red. The hammer clutched tight, the tinker's fingers turning white. Jacob rushed and grabbed the hammer. They struggled. Gunther stood frozen. The tinker pushed Jacob towards the woods while trying to trip him. His rotten breath blew into Jacob's face. Jacob stood aside while pulling on the hammer. The tinker lost his balance. Jacob pushed and released the hammer. The tinker fell into the ditch. His failing arms knocked off his hat. We just want our money back, Gunther called out. The tinker stood. You little shits, he said as he started towards Jacob. As he raised the hammer, Jacob kicked his groin. The tinker doubled over. Jacob picked up the pot and struck the tinker on the top of the head. He fell to his knees. His breathing shortened. Blood emerged through the matted threads of his brown hair. Jacob struck him again. The tinker fell face first into dirt. The bottom of the pot separated. A jagged crescent of metal hung from the bottom. Jacob raised the pot, and as Gunther yelled, "No!" Jacob struck the tinker a third time. Blood spurted onto Jacob's arms and face. The tinker groaned. His legs started twitching. His eyes rolled over, and his last breath blew dust on the road. Blew dust from the road. What have you done? Gunther yelled. He ran to the prone man and knelt over him. He was trying to kill me with that hammer. He's not breathing. I think he's dead. Oh, God, help me, Gunther said. Blood and hair stuck to the curved pot bottom. Jacob dropped it. The mule's droopy eyes blinked. Its long, narrow ears stroked towards Gunther and Jacob. It burped and began chewing cud. Okay.
Perfect place to stop. Awesome. Thank you.
Good.
All right. The things are heating up. Definitely. We've got some action happening there. And I'm sure that's going to have some major ramifications in the days ahead. So, yeah, pop up to the mic there.
There was a few paragraphs I missed when I was editing it. I didn't want to write the whole or print the whole thing off again. So I said, I'll just print off page 1. But I had already made changes, and I must have cut off. There's about 2 or 3 paragraphs that got left out. The tinker ends up to get into more of an argument. The tinker ended up slapping Gunther and that kind of stuff. So anyway,
More fuel to the fire of the rage. Awesome. Okay. Thank you so much, Dan, for sharing that. All right, we're going back out to Zoomland to Gibson's Landing, and Kathleen Vance is waiting in the wings there.
Oh, dear. I didn't know.
Hello.
Okay. This one's called The Forever Sleep, and it's just part 1. I've lost a client. You've got to help me. The woman gasped as she entered the detective agency office without so much as knocking. Heather had never seen her hairdresser like this. Makeup smeared, smock stained and wrinkled, hair all askew. Jade, the hairdresser, normally with the look of a model, perfect tresses, colorful tattoos, and trendy outfit now looked downright ratty. Heather tried to hide her shock as she commented matter-of-factly, I know women are more loyal to their hairdressers than to anyone, that they're more likely to change husbands than hairdressers. From his desk, which supported his propped up feet, Heather's husband interrupted her with the harumph she knew too well after all these years. Nothing to worry about, Harry. I can't afford to lose you, what with you being my business partner as well. The second harumph came from Lil Bloom, and Heather was quick to address them. Okay, Lil, I haven't forgotten you're a 1/3 partner in our Bloom and Little Bloom detective agency. But while it's easy to change husbands nowadays, a person is stuck with their kid forever, or at least until they're 18. So you definitely have nothing to worry about. You're not listening, Heather, Jade screeched. My best client, I just did her hair 2 days ago. A cheekbone grazing bob with razor sharp lines, colored with a warm topaz blonde. And then when I asked her if she was going out to dinner or to a concert or somewhere else nice to celebrate her new look, she tells me she's off to the sleep disorder clinic at the hospital for an overnight appointment. It wouldn't be my choice, but go figure. Well, she's forever asleep now, dead as a doornail. I know what that means, little Bloom couldn't help but brag. It's from A Christmas Carol. Scrooge used it to describe his dead partner, Marley. Doornails were only used by people with more money than anybody deserves, like Marley and Scrooge. And they were hammered in hard and clenched so they would stay put forever. Dickens didn't invent the saying. Shakespeare used it too. He came before Dickens, you know. I'm glad you're reading as much as ever, Lil, but Jade is quite beside herself, Heather said. Maybe you could get her a glass of water. I was only saying a detective can learn a lot from Shakespeare and Dickens, Lil Bloom muttered as they filled the glass and handed it to the hairdresser. Harry, who had only recently, during one of their heated agency discussions, been asked by Heather to take over more of the emotional labor, made eye contact with Jade, mimicked her posture, and spoke softly. I'm so sorry to hear that. But do you know how many people die in hospitals? Well, I'll tell you. Of all the almost 1/3 of a million total deaths in the last year, more than half, 56%, were in hospitals. Realizing that he had slipped out of emotional care mode back into his normal factual mode, Harry added, "It's so sad, but it's true." All the while trying to harmonize his words with his facial expression and body posture. Did they do an autopsy? What was the cause of death? As a kid, Lil generally preferred the practical approach. Harry was back fully in his element. Didn't I just say how many people die in hospital? Hospitals aren't filled with healthy people. Who goes to sleep clinics? Certainly not the healthy. I make my point. The only advantage to it being an overnight hospital sleep clinic is with all those monitors, the staff would know right away the person is dead. No waiting until morning. As for autopsies, you've been watching too much streaming TV. In those shows, autopsies are started almost immediately after death, with the detective badgering the pathologist for the results every 5 minutes. In real life, autopsies take months if they happen at all. Heather saw that she needed to get everyone back on track.
Oh.
Did you speak to your client's sleep clinic? She asked Jade. You better believe it. I made so much noise, they're sending their hospital support worker around this afternoon. The same worker who will be meeting with the poor souls who were in the sleep clinic at the same time. The worker's coming at 4 this afternoon, and I want you to be there as part of your investigation for me. I've lost a client, but you're gaining one. Me, do you accept? Business had been slow lately, so it was no surprise that Heather, Harry, and Lil sounded a chorus of yeses, showing the kind of jubilation you'd expect when a sudden downpour puts out fires and ends a drought. The end.
God, that's so good.
All right, you've got us hooked again, Kathleen. We're going to leave us hanging. How many months till we find out?
Oh my Lord, I don't know. I'll have to write it.
No pressure. Thanks for sharing that. That's got me intrigued. That's for sure.
Oh, good.
Yeah. All right, we're going. Where are we going? Oh, we're going up to Denman Island, and Peter Paul Van Camp is there, back fresh from his tour in Alberta. He and Mark slayed the crowds there, I'm sure. How did everything go? Oh, you're muted still, Peter, down the left corner there. See the little red mic down in the left corner? Click on that. No.
There we go.
There we go. Awesome.
Sorry about that. I think the word you were looking for was slew. Yes, we slew them. And we had a good time doing it as well. So I have a brand new piece here. This one's called For Immediate Publication. And it is actually the transcript of an interview which is going to be published in August in a magazine, a poetry magazine called Pencil and Sharpener, which comes out of Brattleboro, Vermont. The editor is Miss Graceline Sharpener. And what she did was she sent me these questions in the mail, so I was able to compose my answers so that they rhymed with the questions. It worked out pretty nicely. So here we go, for immediate publication. When she asked me, did I traffic in the art of spoken word? I answered, absolutely, though I sing almost a third. All right, and how would you describe the type of poetry you write? Oh, it's the kind you type all morning, afternoon, and late at night. So, do we call you Mr. Van Camp, Peter, or ist Peter Paul? Why, specs suffices nicely, or of the above, all. Now, the readings you put on, how are they generally received? By George, when no one stalks out angrily, I visibly relieved. And what have you to state of the importance of your art? My stars, I'm not prepared to claim that there is an important part, but what messages, if any, are you hoping to convey? Gosh, I just want folks to know that they have heard me have my say. In summation, then, how would you wish to be recalled, supposing history gives you mention? Why, when I've gone on, if anyone remembers what I've scrawled, say, I've been flattered all this time to have received this much attention, whatever happens next. I think we have enough here. Thank you kindly, Mr. Specs. The pleasure's mine, Ms. Sharpener. The pleasure's always mine, and if you're ever in the area, we expect you'll come to dine. And so that's where we left it. Perhaps you'll be showing up someday, knocking at the door around supper time, and we'll put the lamb chops on. Now, I'm from Ohio, as you know, and I have ever so many reasons to never want to ever go back there. But, well, here's a set of ones that you probably haven't heard. This is called Feudal Times, and it deals with an old family quarrel, which was never settled. It's also called I Still Cannot Set Foot in Muskingum County. Because someone said something to which someone took issue, and someone else heard them and told everyone, no one embroiled in that sorry exchange could summon the grace to back down, laugh it off, to think no more of it, and just let bygones be. And then, 225 years went by. Hearsay became legend, a line in the sand, the uncrossable Alps, the unvaultable chasm, the bottomless pit, the that does it, I mean it, that's it, the last straw. One result of this being, I still cannot set foot in Muskingum County, especially the north part, without pulling a slouch hat down over my eyes, disguising my handshake, effecting a stammer, erasing my footprints, lest someone there take me for just who I am, a beeline descendant on father's, mother's, mother's, father's, 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 mother's side of that, quote, half-baked, contentious, hog-headed old dimwit who once had the, quote, hide-bound, hair-brained, contrary presumption to, quote, take it into his stubborn fool head to opine that it, quote, appears to me we might could get us some rain afore evening. And when at once this was challenged, to wit, says you, neighbor, it was already too late, bad blood from before, and if it rained or it didn't, no one now could tell you. Just at one time there had been this clash of convictions, since which they have said, of our side of the ledger, we didn't know nothing, and never would neither, the whole past love'em's too mulish to live, course, you ask one of us, and we'll say, no, that's them. Adding, ain't gonna rain. The whole lot they know, the cussed old cross-grained old, oh, don't get me started. Where do they get off with their ain't gonna rain? Huh. And I'll just add this little postscript, which my grandfather used to quote. The rain, it raineth every day upon the just and unjust fella, but chiefly on the just, because the unjust hath the just umbrella. And so that's where we'll have to leave this quarrel unsettled, and it doesn't look like it's going to rain anytime soon. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Peter.
Thank you, Dick.
Or should I call you Spec? I don't know what.
Oh, Specs will do. Yeah, Specs will do nicely.
Okay. I think you captured the human ego just perfectly in that last one. Yeah. And the small town human ego seems to be, inversely proportionate in size to the populations as it goes. So.
Oh, don't get. Oh, once I get going on this topic, never mind.
All right. Thank you so much for that. All right. And then we're going to carry on with your sidekick here. We're going to go to Wannick to Char and
All right. Yes. Thank you. Can you hear me all right then? Yeah.
Good here.
See, now he would do something like that, you see, but not that, because I'd never heard those two before. And then I do something kind of completely unrelated. You're a thread in a tapestry, it's not hanging on the wall. It's laid upon the land and sea, and that's where you belong. You might need shelter from the rain, some quiet in the storm. But who you are is who you ought to be, of this I'm sure. Shine on, shine on. You've got a moment, live it till it's gone. Shine on, shine on. When you go to paint, it gets all over and all the lines blur. As you get older, the canvases, they pile up so many stops and starts. That's how you learn what you know off by heart. Shine on, shine on. You've got a moment, live it till it's gone. Shine on, shine on. You never learned to dance, somehow you just knew. A rhythm came a-calling and took a hold of you. Some might call it jumping beats, it looks that way to me. Just about as perfect as anything could be. Shine on, shine on. You've got a moment, live it till it's gone. Shine on, shine on. Along the way, I learned a magic trick. Give me your hand. That's it, that's the trick. It took me a while to understand. I figure I'm okay as I am. So are you. And things are always nicer with two. Shine on, shine on. We've got a moment, let's live it till it's gone. Shine on, shine on. We've got a moment. We can run, we can fly, we can jump so high. We don't need to understand why. It's just what we do when we try. Shine on, shine on. We've got a moment, live it till it's gone. Shine on, shine on. We've got this morning. Shine on. There we go.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I wish I had heard that song when I was a teenager and learned that magic trick. I mean, that's perfect. You know, be a magic trick here. Just give me your hand.
There you go. Right on.
That was nice, Mark. Great to have you guys back from your tour there. And I hope everything went well. How did it go?
It was very fun. It was just pure fun well, we had a truck with one of those jump seats in the back.
Oh, yeah.
And so there was me and Richard, who was the bass player, and Specs, crowded in there somehow. And turns out I'm the only one with a driver license. So it was fun though. There was hijinks that were had. Yeah.
I was giving serious thought to getting one though, along about the third hour when I was in the back seat.
Yeah, a lot of complaining.
Yeah.
No,
Well,
there
the
was no
driver had the privilege of more room, right? So it's
They
all
sure
good.
did.
All
Yeah,
good.
It's all good.
Okay. Well, good to have you back in house again. Thank you for sharing that song. It's lovely. All right, we're going to come back into Char's now, and Karen Poirier is going to share some work with us, the talented local visual and literary artist, past feature reader here at Char's. Good evening, Karen. How are you tonight?
Good, good. Yeah, thanks.
All right, right about
Okay.
there. We got the spot. Just test that volume out there on that mic, Karen.
Testing. Yeah, it's good.
Everybody hear you out there in Zoom land? Do I see some thumbs up out there in Zoom land?
Starting to lose my voice. I hope I don't.
Yeah, we have some. Yeah, we're good.
I thought I would just read an excerpt from my book, Across a Prairie Sky. I'll just read the first part of the chapter. Chapter 12, Family Ties. Like a snake shedding its skin, the river discarded its winter coat of ice. As the now free-flowing water rushed past, it was purged of debris and wreckage that had been frozen and still in the quiet tomb of ice and snow. There were branches, trees, parts of buildings, and even dead horses that were swept away, cleansed from the fresh new spring flow of rushing water. Daisy sat daydreaming in the sun-soaked grassy field just beyond the horse barn. Her world was blossoming with new little things. The generous sun was a spark that ignited and liberated the warming earth. Her new little brother Tommy was one of those small things. Even though Daisy loved him, she couldn't help but feel a twinge of regret that she was no longer the baby of the family. She thought as she chewed on a piece of grass, I bet Mom doesn't even know I'm out here. She's so busy with the baby. A meadowlark carrying a small twig in her beak hesitated on a fence post, then hurriedly soared to her nest in a nearby yellow-green leafed balsam poplar tree. The swaying fingers of prairie grasses were stretching, growing, and reaching up towards the energetic sun, and the new warmth was pulled and then absorbed into the busy ground at its feet. Daisy watched as a tiny black ant scurried up the grass stalk. Then she picked a blade of grass and slowly spread it apart. William told her she could make a noise with the grass by holding it between her hands and blowing on it. But try as she might, it wouldn't work for her, so she left it lying beside her on the ground. She was fascinated, drawn like a magnet, to the springtime miracles that were all around her. She remembered the soft, yellow, fluffy chicks that hatched over the weekend. The mother hen scolded William and Daisy when they pushed aside the feathers on her rump to see how many of the chicks had hatched. Scattered in the straw were pieces of shells and fuzzy yellow chicks, fluffing and shaking their tiny wings in blind confusion. They watched as one tender, almost transparent egg grew a longer and wider crack, and then a tiny dark peephole where a tired miniature orange beak had pecked its way through the thin membrane and the shell into daylight. William reached down and picked up one little chick. It fit right into the palm of Daisy's hand when she let her hold it. The chick tickled her hand with the fuzzy new down on top of its prickly feet and sharp-pointed bill. Just as Daisy was returning from her dreamy musings, her attention was drawn to a clucking and quacking somewhere beside her in the grass. A wild mallard mother duck was calling and instructing her newly hatched ducklings to follow her waddle to the tall reed-bordered slough nearby. She was a protective light brown with a yellow bill, and her little babies were yellow with a dark stripe down over their eyes and over their backs. Daisy watched, intrigued with the little black balls that popped up and down in the grass behind the mother duck. With the mallard hen quacking and leading the way, they followed her in a crooked line away through the grasses. When Daisy looked again, one little black fluffy duckling was left behind. It kept popping up and down and peeping, and as loud as it could called for its oblivious mother. Soon the mother and her brood were nowhere to be seen. Only the remaining little black duckling that jumped and peeped for its mother was visible. That little duckling is in trouble. I think he's been left behind. And he's lost in the grass, thought Daisy. Maybe I should help it. I think it needs a mother. Daisy got up and quietly moved towards the panicked duckling. In its frenzy, the duckling didn't notice Daisy approaching. She bent over and gently contained the duckling in her cupped hands. And cradling it in both of her hands, she carried it back to the farmhouse. The duckling was quivering, but remained quiet in the darkness Daisy created with her hand closed over its head. Even though Daisy entered the kitchen as quietly as she could, Mum heard the door open, felt the pools of fresh spring air, and smelled the perfume of green grass and blossoms that followed Daisy into their kitchen. So,
Beautiful.
to be continued.
All right. Thank you, Karen. Sweet moments from the farm life. Yeah, beautiful. All right. I'm going to jump up and share a couple of poems with you now. If I can find my book in my bag, just hang on tight.
Can you get the mic?
I think I can bend it up here and get it in the right spot. Thank you. Yeah, I talked to Kyle. He couldn't make it again this month. Maybe next month, he says. So we'll keep pestering him. So yeah, I just wanted to share a couple of poems to finish the evening off here from Nocturnal Tonglin, my book of poetry. The first one it's about Mother Kali, and the picture on the front is this is actually ekphrastic poetry before I even knew what that was. It's taken from a very famous picture of Mother Kali, who is a Hindu deity, and she's pictured with this necklace of heads around her, and she's always got this one bloody sword in one hand, and she's got another the demon's head in her other hand, and it's dripping blood. And the mythology is that she was a great demon slayer, but this one demon, every time she cut off the head, every drop of blood would sprout another demon. So she had to enlist the help of a dog who would come and drink the blood of the demon's head so no more would come. And so in this book, I'm exploring a lot of things. I mean, it's about the disappearance of my sister-in-law, and it's also looking into gender issues, male violence, etc. And towards the end of the book, where I get a little bit more hopeful, I start talking about Mother Kali, who is a female deity and very powerful. I find the right page. There we go. The only thing other than that I need to tell you is that the words neti, 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 that just means not this, not this, not this. So Mother Kali, she lops them off as quickly as I sprout them. Heads, I mean. Though not really just heads, more like the many bleeding selves I've dreamed myself to be. But she cuts them free. The son, the lover, the poet, the gushing devotee, and such a lovely necklace she strings from the pearls that were my personalities. God only knows how many more dogs will drink my blood, or how many more deaths I must celebrate before I wake to the blessing of her small feet on my chest. Meanwhile, in the sword sheen I see the slow shaking heads of 100 masters saying, neti, 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 until I kneel and once again feel on my neck the razored caress of her compassionate steel. Thank you. And then the last one is called Siberian Orchids. And this arrived, I was in New York City and listening to these two Russian women playing their instruments and singing, and it was just magical and transporting. But it goes beyond that into the deity again at the end. Anyway. When Ruslana plays her broad bandura, rumbling of passing traffic fades with the humid New York night. Transported high above streetlights, we peer into a star-bright Siberian sky, taste centuries of black bread and potatoes and the salt of Russia's soul. Wind rushes down from the steppes and stirs the blood of patriots walking the fence line of some lonely gulag. A cry for the Tsar cracks the night, and once more Moscow's streets run red. And when Medini thrums her domra, air turns waterous, and silver rivers are flowing through the dark spruce forests. Uncle Ivan has fetched a fresh bottle of vodka from the ice house, and there will be tears and dancing all the way until church the next morning. When Ruslana and Medini play, millions of Mother Russia's dead charge heaven's doorway, eager to march in the streets of St. Petersburg once more. But when she sings, even the Cossacks come down from their horses to kneel and drink the waters of another world. On the sun-warmed shores, they slip off tall boots and dream Siberian orchids blooming in the skies over Chechnya. And that's it. Thank you. So thank you all so much for sharing your work and being with us here tonight. Big thanks, of course, to Barbara Black for being our featured reader. Thank you, Barbara, for beautiful work that you shared, and the Q&A afterwards was really inspiring too. So we're really grateful for you. And thank you to Dan for being our spotlight reader tonight and doing the 10-minute gig. And we're looking forward to hearing more of your novel next month, let's hope. Big thanks, of course, to Char for making this all work with her technical wizardry and her beautiful Char's Landing that we're so lucky to have to gather in and keep the literary spirit happening here in Port Alberni. Thank you. Thank you. Yes.
Thank you.
And of course, a big thank you to Karl for being our moderator, keeping us on track, and for Sheila in the back of the house who keeps us fed and watered all night long. So, and big thanks to everybody out there in Zoom land. Really, really great to have you here with us again, and good to have Mark and Spec back with us. We look forward to everybody coming back next month and bringing some more work, whether it be fresh or old, it doesn't matter. We're always happy to hear it. So keep on writing, and in the meantime, stay safe, and we'll see you at the end of August, the end of summer. Oh my God, I hate to say that already. Anyway, take care, everybody. Good night.
Yeah. Bye-bye.
Jen, you can get his books at Amazon.
Oh, and I meant to mention that actually about Barbara's books also being available at Caitlin Press or on Amazon or at her website. Take your choice. They're readily available.
And again, thank you to Derek. And so our next month we have John Barton as our
Yay.
feature reader.
Yes, John Barton from Victoria is going to be
And
reading.
then we have hopefully our 10-minute reader will be Nav here in person from Port Alberni.
Ah, fabulous. So Nav, who does those very creative scripts and reads multiple voices, that will be a lot of fun. Awesome. And John Barton, very celebrated poet. He worked at the library at UVic when I went there back in the 80s. And I remember he had his first book come out just around the time I started university, I think, and he's never stopped since. So that's going to be a real treat to have him here too. Yeah. So, all righty. Good nighty. Take care all. Thanks again, Barbara. Bye-bye.
Yeah, thank you, everybody. Good to see you, Kathleen. I can't wait to see that book out.
Good to see you, Karl. Very good.
Yes. Well, it's good to see you. I hope you get that book out soon.
I want to know, did you get to Saskatchewan?
I did. I went and had a great time. Got to see a lot of good music.
Oh, super.
Yeah, I got to see. Oh shoot, Belle Plain and her husband Blake, a bunch of people, and Coulter Wall. Oh my gosh, he's an amazing guy.
Good. And you
Awesome
flew.
time.
And you flew.
I flew.
Yeah, wonderful. Okay.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Good night, Kathleen. See you, David.
Good night. Thank
Bye. What's that? Yes. Yeah. Dinner party. I was planning on like getting involved with a mouthful of food.